and welcome to Leaders in Conversation. I'm Anni Townend, podcast host and thinking partner to executives, leaders and their teams, co-founder of Collaboration Equation and of the podcast Finding Your Collaborative Edge with Lucy Kidd. Leaders in Conversation is the podcast in which leaders weave together the threads of their life and leadership stories, the people, the places and experiences that have shaped them, their values, beliefs, passion and purpose, to encourage and inspire you to be even more confident and courageous in your leadership. If you're not already, please do subscribe to the podcast, review and share it. Thank you. My guest today is Susie Partridge, round-the-world sailor and founder of the strategic marketing agency Blue Feathers. And the title of our conversation is, What role should today's leaders play in shaping the marketers of tomorrow? I had the pleasure of being in conversation with Susie for an earlier episode of Leaders in Conversation, in which she spoke about the people and the places and experiences that had shaped her life and leadership, and how following her passion for sailing helped her find her purpose and to set up Blue Feathers 8 years ago. In this episode, we pick up on these last 8 years of running Blue Feathers, and Susie offers valuable insights into what the fast-changing marketing landscape means for capability in the industry, the responsibility leaders have for developing marketers of the future, and how to drive capability as part of a marketing culture. Susie, welcome. It really is a joy to have you back on Leaders in Conversation and to pick up the story really where we left off last time, which was where you'd got to in founding Blue Feathers and having found your passion, followed your passion and found your purpose.
Thanks, Annie. It's lovely to be back. Appreciate you inviting me.
Well, I think we promised each other, didn't we, that we had so much more to share through our conversation that is important and relevant for leaders and for marketers now more than ever. And maybe that's where we start with, what does the fast-changing marketing landscape mean for capability in the industry?
Obviously, we're all very used to hearing about how much change we're living through as a society. I feel we hear the word change in the news every day. We hear the words change and transformation in the business context. So it's no surprise that we're seeing big shifts in the marketing landscape as well. It goes without saying AI has to be mentioned within this. AI is here. It is already changing how marketing operates, what our operating model is in industry. And I think we're moving from what's predominantly been a human-led function to arguably one that ultimately could end up being AI-led and human-guided. And I think that's really important. AI can't do it all. We all know that. The human guiding part is really important and what grounds and brings the sort of quality of what we do as marketeers. I think the other thing that AI is doing is it's raising the bar in what brands can actually create and achieve. That's brilliant, but with it brings a whole plethora of choices, loads of volume of things that it's creating. And obviously with that, you get the potential for AI slop or whatever you want to call that. And I think that means that brands that are going to win are the ones that actually are really clear in what it is they are wanting to achieve. So they need a clear direction and they've got to make clear choices to drive kind of coherence and consistency towards that goal, that direction that they want, which for me links into sort of solid marketing fundamentals, if we call them that. But then on the flip side, when we look at how marketing has evolved over the last decade, we've had a real boom in channel-specific roles and a focus on performance marketing as a discipline. So within that, we haven't been doing as much in some places on those fundamental skills. And when I say the fundamentals, I mean having, and I say this as a strategist, but having good strategy and planning combined with really great judgment of that creative and of the intent of the marketing, and then aligning that on delivery. There's then another part where I think we're not necessarily investing in training as heavily. There's not as much training going in at the base of the industry and less investment generally, which all means that we've got this emerging group of marketeers with a different skill set to what we're actually going to need going forward, or start to need already today and now.
It's great to hear all of these things, and that you've put AI led alongside human guided, and that you started with that, because it seems to me that our human connection matters more than ever, and that we are living in an AI led world, which can be very frightening for some people because we don't always know the direction. And that takes me to what you were saying about having a clear direction, knowing where you're going, and to your experience of sailing around the world, where I imagine having a clear direction and having a strategy of how you were going to get to where you were get to at the same time as there being huge unknowns.
Yes. I hadn't made that connection, Annie, but that makes me smile. Yes, absolutely. Ultimately, when I think about that, it's very true. We had a big goal, the goal to make it around the world. But within that, we had, I guess, milestones within it, because when you're sailing sort of those long distances, you are dictated by weather patterns, that there are times of year to cross the Atlantic, there are times of year to cross the Pacific, or I should rather say times that are better and the weather systems are more optimal. So that got us into those sort of almost high-level milestones to get round. But then within that, as you say, ultimately, we were at the mercy of Mother Nature. And so we were making what you would equate to tactical decisions about when are we going to make that hop across that bit between those two countries or those two islands, but ultimately always knowing that goal for the season. It's almost like a brand saying the round the world goal is the ultimate thing the brand wants to achieve, but it's going to take 4 years, as we did. And actually, these are the milestones along the way that we've got to get to. And then it's the tactics within it that we're making the choices of, and relate that into marketing. It's AI giving us a far greater choice of tactics, making it even more important to know what that milestone is that you're aiming for in that time period, if that cross analogy makes sense.
I think it's a really helpful analogy, and also links with how AI is changing everything, because what you're describing there is having a clear direction, but being in the sea of change. It's what's being talked about most of the time. You were very changed, I think, by the experience of sailing around the world, and came back from it, founded Blue Feathers, and your experience of sailing and of founding Blue Feathers, and it shaped how you have created a culture.
Yeah, I think when I came back, I leaned really heavily on the understanding that I'd got that living outside your comfort zone is a great way to learn and grow. It gave me that confidence to go out and try setting up the agency. And I say try, I'm here now 8 years later. I've done it. We've been successful, continue to be successful. That's great. But I guess I was also in the mindset, but nothing has to be forever. If I had done it and found I didn't like it, or actually it didn't feel right, I think I'm really lucky I've landed on doing something that I love doing. And I've had the opportunity to grow through that. And I suppose over the time, what I've also come to realize is actually it's hard work, but it's a real privilege to run your own business, because you get to own and shape and decide what it is that you're doing and your team's doing. Obviously, taking the team on the journey and having them in those decisions too. And I've always been focused on how can we best help our clients with the services that we offer. I set the business up to help people and brands to succeed. And the people part was always really important within that. At Blue Feathers, we are all about really high quality delivery, marketing excellence, sharing that excellence and supporting people within large brands to succeed, both personally and for their brand. My team are all fully remote. So we have people living from Cornwall down in the southwest up as far as Manchester and actually over in Germany. And that means that they are all living their lives in the way they want. Some of them have portfolio careers. They do other things. So we have someone who's doing the marketing for their partner's craft gin business and other things, and others who work part-time to support the family. Our clients wouldn't ever know that, other than the fact that these are really interesting, dedicated, committed people. But it's that balance that enables them to then deliver brilliant work. So that's at the heart of the culture that's motivated me, that drives the team, and that ultimately, I think, enables us to do our best work.
And that's what I remember from our earlier conversation, is your passion for helping people. So helping brands grow and develop and be their best, but at the same time helping people to live and lead their best lives and to find that balance, which I know for so many people is so difficult. So I think what you've created is something very special. What have you learnt about supporting, doing the very best for your clients, delivering excellence for them, and being the very best for each other?
Ultimately, it's all about trust and communication. I'll always go back to clear goal. So we need to work with clients who have a clear goal, or we can help them work out what their clear goal is. But once we all know what we're going for, then, like I say, it's trust and communication, because we need clients to trust the process, to trust us, to build that relationship so that they can trust us to take them on the journey. And we do. We work very collaboratively. Everyone has so much going on. Be choiceful about those moments of interaction and what they are there for and how you use them. That helps to build the trust. We then have to have trust within our team. It's a fully remote team. You can't function in that setup without trust. It's that understanding between people, and then communication, because you risk ending up in silos if you're not communicating and sharing what you're doing, both within the team and then to the client. We have regular team meetings for the whole team that, as with any team, are forums for sharing, learning between ourselves, sharing updates, connecting with each other, forever getting to know each other better. We then get together in person as a full team where the focus is on team time together, be it around a learning purpose or around different activities that we do together. So yes, we're predominantly remote, but we know that those moments matter, being together.
What you're also describing, and I'm smiling as you're speaking, is that whenever you do anything, you do it intentionally and always with a clear direction. We're here to build on our relationships with each other, understand each other better, deepen our trust of each other. And it reminds me of Patrick Lencioni's work, and in particular being very clear about different kinds of meetings, which I certainly found very helpful, and knowing even in a quick half-hour meeting that it is a quick half-hour meeting, maybe to do something tactical, that it is a whole day or half a day strategic get-together. I was speaking with somebody a while ago who spoke about their team purpose when they were getting together to simply hang out together, that they were missing the experience of hanging out together because they work remotely very effectively, but that they recognised that their purpose for getting together this time was simply to hang out together and share being together.
I think it's really important because it guides the expectation of how you're going to behave, of what it is that you want. We run a lot of workshops. We've taken to doing a quick 30-minute briefing that can be recorded if people can't make the exact slot, but to brief workshop participants in the week beforehand so that they come to the day knowing what's going to be expected of them. It has made a real difference, actually, because you get into the guts of the workshop and what you're needing to do far quicker on the day, taking real advantage of that time, that physical time together.
ahead of my work with leaders and their teams, send out some questions for reflection. And the reasons for doing that are twofold. One, helping people to reflect and to make time for reflection and to reflect on some questions which they may have reflected on previously, possibly not for a long time and at a different time. Or it might be the first time that they've really reflected on, what do I really care about, my values and beliefs when I'm partnering with the leader and their team. Asking, what is your passion and where does it show up in your life and leadership? And I think what that also does, it sets an expectation. Oh, it's going to be that kind of experience. We're going to be reflecting and having conversations with each other. We're going to be getting to know each other and building our relationships, deepening trust between us. But we're also going to be reflecting and pausing and stopping and thinking together.
I think it's really important, and I think it's a great way to prepare people. I think the other thing it does is that some people could answer those things immediately. I'm speaking as a reflector myself that would want time to have explored it a little bit more. So I think that some people don't engage with what we send in the prep because they just naturally will do it in the moment. That's brilliant that they can do that. It's catering for everybody by offering it in advance, I think.
It's something which is really important to me and my colleague Lucy Kidd in our work with Collaboration Equation, which is around creating a safe environment and helping people to enjoy inclusive dialogue. And that, of course, is founded on being able to express difference and think differently and also feel differently and feel that you are part of something and part of together finding your collaborative edge, which is where we get to. How do we drive capability as part of a marketing culture? You referenced it earlier in our conversation today that perhaps we're not paying enough attention to driving capability as part of creating a marketing culture.
If we think about a sort of a capability culture within marketing, that would be a place where you've got new skills that are being trained, regularly practiced, stretched, and then embedded into the everyday work of the team. But even just in saying that, that can feel like a big ask, because what that really means we're saying is if a leader wants to drive that, they've got to help create those conditions and create it in a positive way where learning is seen as part of how the team operates and they're driving it in habits and rituals and expectations within the team. As leaders within marketing, we have that responsibility to drive that on, because I look back at moments in my career where I've been given those opportunities to stretch and grow and invest in myself in that way. And those have made the step changes and the sort of growth journey that's enabled me to, I suppose, become who I am today and how I do things today. I think the first thing is almost normalizing learning, making it visible. It's something that everybody does, that you as a leader, you're actually demonstrating. It's encouraging people to having those conversations. What are the skills you want to build, be that things you're strong in already or things that you want to fill gaps, or maybe gaps that you see are appearing in the team, and is there someone who wants to take that gap on for you? And yes, there are formal ways. I came up through Unilever. We had formalized learning plans and it was in objectives. But what that does is it means that it's positioning it and saying, actually, this is part of your job. Part of your job is to learn and grow. We want to support that. And it gives a message that it's okay. So it helps to normalize that within the team. I think if you've normalized it, you've then got to walk the talk. So yes, training courses are really important for transferring knowledge, but actually, and I'm sure you know this model, Annie, there's 70-20-10 learning models, 70% of learning actually coming from on-the-job experience, so working on live projects, 20% from working with others, and 10 from that formal learning or capability building comes when we're actually applying it and getting stuck in on real work. And so I think it's giving people the space and remembering that it will take someone a little bit longer the first time they do it, the second time they do it. But the third or fourth time, actually, that's when you get the sort of payback, as it were, because someone has really got it. And then I think the final bit is that, as with any culture change, the leader has got to be seen to be walking the talk, because people follow what you do more than what you say. It's that accumulation of those small, purposeful actions that actually over time starts to build, and what feels like a big thing to get into at the start actually just starts to grow. And you're going to have people in your team who want this, and they're going to get onto the journey with you and help drive it through the team, which then ultimately makes it really land as part of the culture.
It's so great leaning into this learning. As you're talking and I'm listening, I'm thinking, asking the question of oneself, but also of each other, what did you learn today? And expanding that question into, what did you learn about yourself? Something new. So paying attention to that. What did you learn about other people, the people that you were working with? And what did you learn that was new or relearn? There's so much in what we're learning, and there's so much to learn, and listening to learn and being open to learning, I think, is so important. And as leaders, we have that responsibility, and I think you hold that very strongly. As leaders, we have that responsibility to create the conditions for other people to learn in, to bring your curiosity to learn. And earlier you spoke about being at sea, sailing, and being at the edge of your comfort. And I think that's often when we're learning something new, we are at the edge of our comfort zone because it is new. And it's really important, I think, as leaders and experienced leaders and marketers to remember what it's like to learn something new.
Yeah, I agree. Everything you've said. I think my first reflection is actually that point of reflection about learning, because what you're saying when you're asking someone, what have you learned today or what have you learned this week? It's helping cement that in that person's mind. And we're all so busy. We've all got so much stimulus going into our lives that taking that moment helps, being at the edge of comfort. When I look at the last 8 years of Blue Feathers, actually, I realise that I've been learning that whole time, also making mistakes along the way, as we all do. My role has changed over that time, and I've had to learn different things at different times. And that has kept it exciting, kept it fresh, made it scary. I think that's normal, that there are elements of that. I always say to people with the sailing around the world, particularly when I'm speaking predominantly to women who are thinking about doing something similar, I say, if I'm really honest, if I knew everything I was going to have to do on that trip, physically, but also some of the situations I had to deal with and have the mental strength to deal with, I probably wouldn't have gone. But because, going back to the big goal, I'm really glad I did it, because it put me in those situations where I learned my strengths, my skills, and faced into all of that. And I don't regret a thing. It's quite similar with the business. I didn't know 8 years ago some of the things I would be doing now in what we need to do to lead a team through this time of change. But I'm really happy I'm doing it, and I love it. So there's also like a slight benefit of not trying to understand everything too much.
It has me in mind of a question that I ask leaders, which is, what's the thing when you look ahead that's most exciting you and scaring you? Speaking to that both and of leadership, but very much to the thing that we want to go for, the direction that we want to go in, can be and often is scary and exciting. And it's partly because of the unknown, and it's probably a good thing that we don't know everything. Otherwise, we might not do it. What have been some of the most exciting and scary things for you, Susie, in the last 8 years, where you've had your biggest learning?
I mean, in terms of scary moment would be when I brought my first employee on board, because it's the first time you're fully making that commitment that this is bigger than just you, or bigger than just me. You have to actually drive the business for them to have the work. You're taking a responsibility for that person's livelihood and their family's livelihood. And that never leaves me in terms of that responsibility. I talked earlier about trust. In bringing people in, I was essentially entrusting my brand. So Blue Feathers is very much built around my belief system. I'm entrusting that into other people's hands to go and deliver that on our behalf. I look now today and the team are out and about delivering trainings, workshops, meetings, because the business is of a size that I obviously can't be in all this, but I fully trust the team. If I couldn't trust them in that way, we couldn't grow the business. And what I love about growing the business is being able to actually support more people, so more clients to do better marketing and more people in my team to get the satisfaction that they want. So again, because I have that goal, I think about the bigger picture that I'm trying to work towards for the team.
Brilliant. I think it's brilliant what you've created, Susie, and very exciting talking to you again sometime since our first conversation. As we draw this conversation to a close, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would really like to talk about that we've not given enough time for that you'd like to speak to?
The one thing that was on my mind coming in is part of the realization, or we may say growing up, maturing, that I've had in a slightly philosophical way. I've suddenly realized that as leaders in marketing, we do feel a responsibility, not just for my team, not just for my clients, but actually, as if I take the phrase, stewards of the profession. Marketing is bigger than all of us. It existed well before us. It will continue in many forms beyond us. And I think about that responsibility to hand it over in a better shape than we found it. So when I talk about capability, yes, it's capability for individuals, but it's also capability in the standing of the industry and how we keep the integrity of the discipline and the way that leadership has to be there to help bridge from what marketing was to what it's becoming. We spoke at the beginning about how the dynamics in marketing are changing and how the skills that we need are changing. We've talked about how we can support skills growth within our teams, but it's that bit that connects. Leadership has to drive that bridge. We have to be looking ahead, thinking about the skills that are increasingly needed, and therefore helping make sure that's there. My belief is that those fundamentals that we talked about at the beginning of good strategy and planning, great creative, but then also the judgment to guide and align that, I believe remains and will become even more important. So that's what I see I can bring in terms of making sure that marketing is in better shape when I leave it, whatever that point will be, than it was before.
It's a lovely reflection, and the concept of our being stewards in our leadership and thinking about that and leaving things in better shape and fit for the future. I think we all have that responsibility, and it's so important in our leadership and lives, who we're being and how we're doing it, and thinking for and from the future is so important. Susie, as a result of our conversation today, who is the person that you're going to have a conversation with, and what will the conversation be about?
So I think the conversation that I want to have is actually around the realities within the marketing teams today, because I do talk a lot to our clients and to other leaders in marketing, but I want to have a more focused conversation about what is the reality of learning in teams at the moment. And there's actually a couple of brand leaders that I've got in my mind that I want to go and have that with in different types of businesses, and what we've been talking about that change.
Wonderful. And they both sound like they're going to be learning conversations. What are your 3 key encouragements to leaders, marketers, listeners of our conversation today?
I think the first actually relates to the last point we were talking about, which is thinking about that guardianship that we have and thinking, what's the role you want to take as a guardian of marketing? What matters to you that you want to protect and pass on to the next generation to help set the industry up and set the individuals up going along? I think it's a really interesting exploration that I've had and enjoyed. Then the second thing is that whatever that is, be the champion of it. Share your passions. Spend the time thinking about how it applies. Share that on. It's a really rewarding thing to be able to actually find people who want that support and want that guidance, and then being able to share that, because you also learn through it yourself massively. The third part is the role modeling piece. So role modeling growth. If it's important to you, role model it. Even if you feel you haven't got time, just start seeding it through, because that will normalize that cycle of learning, actually make it everyday part of what our teams do, which in turn, I think, drives the growth, supports where we need to go as an industry. So a bit of a theme of supporting others with their learning and supporting marketing in its widest sense to learn and grow together.
And you, Susie, are an amazing role model for that, in being in our conversation today, but all that you do through and for clients through Blue Feathers. For people who are listening and would like to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm on LinkedIn. So it's Susie Partridge on LinkedIn. And we've also got our company website, bluefeathers.co.uk. But LinkedIn is a good way, and I'll always respond. It would be lovely to hear from people who've been thinking about the topics that we've talked about.
And I'm sure people will want to. And thank you so much for our conversation today, and for our having a second conversation in which you've shared your experience of the last 8 years and so much more. Thank you. To listen to other leaders in conversation with me, Anni Townend, do go to my website, annitownend.com. And to listen to Finding Your Collaborative Edge with Lucy Kidd and I, do go to our website, collaborationequation.com. Huge thank you to Schmogus Media for the wonderful production and marketing of the podcast, along with Louisa Penny from Penny Writing. Do contact me via LinkedIn, email me on annie@annitownend.com. I look forward to connecting with you. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Susie, for a really wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Annie. It's been great. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.